This is the Affordable Housing Committee meeting of May 8th, 2024. We're meeting in the Town Hall Conference Room as well as here in Zoom. We do have a quorum. I will turn things over to our chair, opening remarks, and then right into today.
Well, we're delighted to have a group of very distinguished guests with us tonight.
Where are they?
They must be in the parking lot.
Whom we'll ask to introduce themselves. And why don't we start with the most important folks here? Why don't you introduce yourselves, and then we'll go around the table here and do as well.
Good evening. My name is Peter Stofa. I'm a local builder here in Fairfield, and I recently purchased 68 Royal Avenue, and that's why we're here. We'd like to build a nice community over there.
I'm John Fallon. I'm here tonight representing two clients, Peter and Mark Andre, who will introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Philip Surround. I'm an architect here in Fairfield, and I'm with you.
Hi, Andre. I'm here with Jessica McHugh, the other architect in the office, and this is our new hire who will join us, soon to graduate. I am a managing member of Sunshine Acquisition Group. We are under contract to purchase 2179 Post Road, and we're looking for mixed-use development. And we're here to share our vision with you and gather this.
Oh, I forgot. Yeah, of course.
I'm Tom Phillips. I'm a resident, and I go to California every now and then. I see lots of really innovative stuff happening there. The way of housing, ADUs, low density increases, 7-story houses, and it's made a difference to the housing situation in California. And I'm here to see if something similar could happen in Fairfield, in fact, around Connecticut, so that it becomes more affordable place for many young people to stay and not head elsewhere.
I'm Michelle McKee. I'm a Fairfield resident. I'm also on the representative town representing for also trying to here in
So we'll go around the table here. I'm Earl Cooper, current chair of the committee.
I'm Janice Bullabasis.
Preston Berger in the recordings.
Steve Grothwell, member.
Bob Ellinger, member.
And Jackie Page.
Also on the committee, and Mark Barnhart, your pastor.
That's terrific. So we will we'll do a 30-second item first, and then we'll move right to the main events. The first item is to approve the minutes of our meeting. Is there
I move to approve with one change. On page 2, I think we can get a little more specific, mention where you report that the town and Carol Martin are continuing to discuss the purchase of this property. Sorry, let's just say St. Emery's, I think it's a school, right? Yeah. Not the common. St. Emery's School on Byron Street. We just insert that instead of this. Pretty more specific. Otherwise, I'm fine.
Referring to an item on the agenda. Sorry.
so
With that change.
So I move to approve with that change.
Steve, all in favor? Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Brett. And we're going to introduce you, Brian, Brian Beatty, illustrious committee member. Just joined us. We've got a whole group. Whole group behind you there at the center stage. Now it's time. Yeah, well, welcome everybody.
Thank you. Good evening, and thank you for allowing us to be with you tonight. I'm here, as I said before, representing Mr. Peter Stofa, who has the owns the property that ultimately we would like to develop, and we'll share that with you in a little bit. Also is Mr. Phil Cerrone, who is our architect. But primarily what brings us here for your consideration and hopefully your support is an amendment that we will be bringing of the zoning regulations to the Planning and Zoning Commission. I think I've distributed that to you. Mark is providing it now. It's an amendment of section 5.1.1, which would create a new subsection, 5.1.1.2. I won't read it to you, but the essence of it is that what it indicates is that if there is property located in the Residence B district and it exceeds 15,000 square feet in lot area, then there would be an opportunity to create an incentive for the developer to add affordable housing to the overall proposal. To step back for a minute, you know, I think there's a commitment, I know on the part of the P&Z, and I certainly know on the part of this committee, to expanding opportunities for affordable housing units in residential zones. And that includes doing that in discrete ways without necessarily resort to 8-30G. What we're looking at here would be an individual affordable unit that would be constructed in conjunction with a residential development as generally already permitted in the zone. So we have limited this amendment for purposes of taking it to the Planning and Zoning Commission to the B zone. One could make an argument that philosophically it would be sensible to extend that formula that I'll review with you in a minute to the C zone as well. But that's something that we determined, and frankly, I spoke to Mr. Wendt, I spoke to Mr. Barnhart, that we would leave that to the discretion of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And we would keep ours focused on the B zone because that's where our property is. So let's talk a little bit about what we have. In the B zone, you can have a single family home with 6,000 square feet. You can have a two-family home with 9,000 square feet. So if you just hand me the site plan for a minute, I'm too old to get up. This property is 15,000 square feet. So as of right, Mr. Stofa could build a two-family and a single family, a total of 3 units of housing. Under this amendment, what would happen would be that the developer, in this case, Mr. Stofa, would get 1 bonus unit added to the 3, provided that he, in fact, dedicated another unit to be deed restricted as affordable in accordance with the standards of 8-30G. So what you'd end up with in this situation, and what we're trying to facilitate, are 5 residential units on this property. 1, the bonus unit, the 3 that are as of right, the bonus unit to incentivize the developer to create an affordable housing unit, and the 5th unit, which would be deed restricted as affordable. That's not out of whack with the general purpose of the comprehensive plan, insofar as if you had 18,000 square feet, you could build 2 two-family houses. So that would be a total of 4. So what we're looking to do here is to provide an incentive in the regulations, at least in the B zone, to attract developers like Mr. Stofa to say, okay, we'll give you a bonus, but you have to give us something in return. And in this case, the something in return is an affordable unit. And just we've done a very schematic rendering, but, you know, on this particular property, this would be, you know, the concept of what we would be looking at. Obviously, we refine the architecture, but the concept would be to allow an incentive for developers linked to an affordable housing unit to increase by 1 the density that they'd otherwise be entitled to as of right. Now, could you expand that to the C zone, same concept? The answer is you could. It serves the same, I think, public purpose, which is to incentivize affordable housing in zones that already have multifamily housing, and to do it in a manner that is basically consistent with the intent of the existing zoning regulations in terms of density, because the unit, as I said, is a bonus unit, but it yields also an affordable housing unit. So we're going to take this to the Planning and Zoning Commission, and we'd love to take it with your endorsement as a tool in the toolbox, if you will, that would be beneficial in a limited sense. It's not going to solve our affordable housing issues in town, but it would provide opportunities for developers to add a unit of affordable housing to our housing inventory in town and provide them an incentive for doing so. That's kind of the overview of what we've presented in the language, which I didn't read to you. I think hopefully brings that across. So thank you for thinking. If there are any questions, welcome any comments, obviously, as well.
So, as you know, we've spent some time looking at the residence B and C zone and the regulations associated with that, and have discussed changes to allow for smaller lot size on some of those units. For example, we know that a considerable number of those existing duplex units are built on substandard or undersized lots to begin with. So again, the modest density that's being proposed here, we thought was entirely consistent with the Affordable Housing Plan recommendations, as well as the draft POCD, which is looking to increase opportunities for middle housing. I do agree with Attorney Fallon that I think there is opportunity to go beyond what's being proposed here and look at both lots within the Residence C zone as well as Residence B, perhaps even smaller lot areas, since we've already established, again, there's some level of, I don't want to say arbitrariness, but the 9,000 square foot lot that is our duplex building lot in Residence B. Already demonstrated that there's a number that don't meet that requirement. So it's the question of whether 9,000 is really needed. So that we thought this was worthwhile bringing to the committee for consideration, and Planning and Zoning Commission for consideration as next. Jackie had a question. Sorry.
You're on mute.
Do I have to?
Yeah, I just want to confirm, I can't really see the picture. They're townhomes, is that what the picture shows?
That's that's correct, ma'am.
Okay.
I
And they're all,
the other way.
It's over there.
I don't know where the camera is.
Thank you.
Yeah, and this is very conceptual. I mean, this is not at all unattractive, but under the talented hand of Mr. Cerrone, who I've worked with over decades, I think we can even make it aesthetically more pleasing. But the concept is townhomes, yes. Because again, what we're trying to do here is provide that incentive for increased affordable housing, but in a context of, the character of the neighborhood. I mean, I know, I bring 8-30Gs into some of these neighborhoods, and there's often concern that, well, it's not in character with the neighborhood. So this kind of a discrete amendment allows us to yield, hopefully, something like that with an incentivized developer that is in keeping with the character of the residential neighborhood.
John, that shows 4 units, doesn't it?
Thank you.
I don't know. I just saw it for the first time.
Yeah, this is just 4 unit, but it's a concept,
Yeah. So how would it affect the neighbors on coverage? You're going to go from 3 units to 5, and you're going to have 7 parking spots or 5, 8? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, right now, yes.
Yeah, so
Yes, please.
so the idea is to keep all the rest of the regulations in the zone as is. So the coverage is at 30%. We keep it at 30%. So even though we're going to build more units, we're not increasing the coverage. So in theory, we could build 1 house that size on that lot. So we're not building more. We're building more units, not necessarily more density.
So smaller units, perhaps?
Well,
Is that
smaller
what
than
you're
you would have in
saying?
a single family home, but a
Right.
typical
So you're
townhouse unit would
increasing
be
the number of units, but they're a little smaller. Is that what you're saying?
Right.
Yeah,
We felt
I
it
like
was-
townhouse. I like that idea.
We felt it was important, if the concept is to come up with something that is in character with the neighborhood, not to seek amendments beyond this where we are saying, well, we want X more coverage, X more FAR. So we would abide by all the other regulations. And to answer, Steve, your question, that would mean we'd abide by the parking requirements as well.
And Steve, at least one car, if not two, but at least one car for every unit will be inside.
Yeah.
So there's at least one of the two cars for every unit inside a garage.
Question?
So you can put the sign down. Thank you very much for showing.
Thank
So these are all
Travis,
rentals.
you get hired last. So you gotta-
Listen, I'm gonna bill you.
You have another one, Jackie?
And these are all rentals, all of the units?
Well, I mean, I think that's more likely than not. We haven't totally reached a conclusion on that, but I think that is our present intent, yes.
But the text
And
amendment allows you to sell them.
Yeah, the text amendment just requires that they be deed restricted as affordable pursuant to 8-30G. And as you know, that would theoretically allow for rental or sale, but the sale of the affordable unit, if that were the case, would have to be in accordance with the affordable standards based upon the median income, et cetera.
And the affordable unit is identical to the other units?
Absolutely, because that's why we reference 8-30G, because again, that is encoded in the statute that the affordable unit has to be of like size, materials, et cetera.
Thank you.
I did have one question. So I did a little bit of research before the meeting, and it looks to me like there are about 100 properties, maybe a little less, at 15,000 or more square feet in Zone B. I happen to live in one of those on Spruce Street, which is actually in the historic district. It's one of the few Zone B properties, I think, that is actually in one of the historic districts. And we actually have some subdivided homes on the street, so I'm familiar with it. I'm just wondering, in terms of character, how it will wind up looking if we, with relatively narrow lots. I have a pretty narrow lot. How it works with when you've got narrow lots in terms of trying to configure.
Well, not every lot. Yeah, not every lot is going to be suitable for application of this amendment because, as I said, we're not seeking to waive any of the other regulations that relate to setback, frontage, things of that nature. So you might have a narrow lot that has technically 15,000 square feet or more, but this type of development might not be feasible. In fact, I haven't done a survey, and I don't know whether Mark has any information on this, but I don't honestly think there's a whole lot of at least properties in the B zone that would be for which this would be applicable, taking in consideration that the other zoning regulations would have to be abided by.
We did an initial analysis, and that conforms with Herb's research, but just in terms of lot size within the residence B zone, 15,000 square feet or more. If you took out setbacks and lot square and other requirements, it would obviously be fewer.
It's going to be fewer, and I don't even know if it would work theoretically in my own property, which is relatively narrow and deep. I'm just wondering about how this all fits together.
Yeah, I think our best protection in terms of making sure that what's coming forth as a result of this amendment, if it's granted, is again adherence to the balance of the regulations, because in terms of neighbor impact and compatibility with the neighborhood, if you keep the coverage and FAR and setback requirements in place, you're not likely to have an adverse impact in that regard. And you can still get the affordable unit that we're striving to incentivize.
John, what's the timing on this?
We want to move forward. I mean, we wanted to come to you first, but I expect we will make our application for the amendment in the next couple of weeks, and then it'll be scheduled in accordance with the statute to a public hearing. I would guess, looking what's presently going on with the P&Z sometime in July, I don't know if they're going to meet in August, but we're going to file it pretty promptly.
No, to your point, Herb, it probably would be helpful. I don't know if we can, based on the information that we have available to us, to do a little bit more analysis to determine what the universe of parcels would be. I think that would answer some of Planning and Zoning Commission's likely questions.
We're likely to be asked that question, I think, by Planning and Zoning.
We have an outer limit, but I think we can probably drill down a little bit more to understand better response to the question you raised as to what's the likely universe of communities that.
This is good for the missing middle. Helps our.
Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
That's why I thought it
I
fits squarely
love that
within
it's
our
not a building.
policy recommendations.
I mean, we're very mindful of the fact that once we get a moratorium, which we think we're pretty close to from 830G, is we're gonna have to work hard to make sure we produce these units. And we'll have some carryover from the work that's already been accomplished. But you know, many of the, much of the qualifications for moratorium has come from 832 units. So it means we've all got to be ready to scramble and work hard.
Yeah. And I
great concept.
Yeah, and I think, Mark, I enjoy rolling up my sleeves with you, not leaving it all on you, as far as this sort of drilling down to a better inventory, because that'll be, I think, a very fundamental question that the P&Z will want to know. So you and I can talk about that.
I meant, you know, the greater good, the greater, most important thing is obviously is producing units because people need housing.
Correct.
The moratorium makes us, you know, solves a public demand, but the greater good is obviously is producing units.
John, can you share the address of Peter's?
Yes, the address of the property is
68 Royal.
68 Royal.
Right off the
What's that?
And for every single 15 square feet.
No, I don't know that it has to be written into the actual text amendment itself, but I think it'll be part of the narrative that goes before the commission when they consider it. Obviously, they want to understand. The question is whether some of these other criteria would need to be written into the text amendment. I think this is sufficient for the needs that we're addressing. Obviously, everything else will apply unless there is specific exemption, and there isn't any within this language.
Correct. I think you'd only want to start referencing coverage, FAR, setbacks, something like that, if you were seeking, as we're not, to modify those to be applicable to this type of.
Generally, I like to keep language as simple as possible.
I just see the language being very simple. I'm like, you know, usually it takes a while to read some of the things that people bring forward. So I'm like,
I would say,
I tried to do
that. Attorney Fallon did take some care in drafting some language for staff consideration. I know that Jim and Emmeline have reviewed the proposed text, as have I, and so we thought it was ready for your consideration. So we do have some time if you want to take it over. I can certainly draft a letter in support if that's the general sense of the board for our consideration at our next meeting, and that would certainly be timely, I think, based on your representation as to when it would likely be filed and when a public hearing would be scheduled. So we could consider specific language in support at our June meeting.
I mean, that's we really would like not to go forward without your endorsement. So to the extent that you feel you need additional time to, with Mark, whatever, we want you to be comfortable and enthusiastic about this before we take it to the P&Z.
If we meet next June 12th, we do have a lot to get done between now and then. We've even floated the idea of possibly having a special meeting to address a lot of the issues that are outstanding. So
I don't want to forestall if the people want to make a motion. We could just I don't have specific language for you to consider a letter in support for this meeting. So
and I want to drive by before I vote.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we need a little bit of time.
Okay.
We're excited about the the fact that you're pursuing these.
Yeah, I appreciate your time, and it's sort of, Mr. Chairman, what you said, it's, we're just trying to think outside the box, as I know this commission is, this committee is, because you're right, we're gonna face this issue for a long time, and the AS30G pipeline, for better or for worse, is apt to be, at least temporarily cut off relatively soon.
I mean, it is consistent with what we've brought up in prior meetings in lowering the minimum from 9,000 to 7,500 square feet for a duplex. And so this falls in line with that, and it throws in the bonus. So I think it's pretty good.
Yeah. Well, we thank you, and we'll look forward and hopefully to your support after you've had a chance to fully consider it. Thanks.
Thank you.
John, did you say the address is 68?
68 Royal, yes.
Yeah, let me log this in.
I gotta do this one too, please.
Okay. All right. Mark? Can I plug it in?
Yeah, try it.
Very much. Yes, very much. I just found out. I don't know, maybe.
We're gonna let Mark try to get here.
Let's see how this is gonna work.
That's a wheelchair. That's a wheelchair. Thank you.
It'll be fine.
Thank you.
Thank you. See you, Peter, Phil, thank you. Take care. Thank you.
Okay. How do I get in that screen?
I don't know.
If anyone's talking, I can't hear it now.
Looks like we've lost you.
Yes, I can't hear anything. Maybe if Mark Barnhart, if you unmute you're.
Hey,
Do you have
Can you still hear us? You're on mute, Jackie. Do you want to be on mute?
So Mark, maybe, but here's you need the Zoom.
the link?
Here's the link.
I need to get online first.
We can hear you, but we can't see anything. It's a dark screen.
Okay. You got the link?
How do I?
Do it via your Mark Barnhart login.
Yeah.
It might work.
Is the volume up, Jackie?
Hi.
Yeah, I see her.
Yeah, but he needs to get into the network, which is.
Well, that's to get Zoom. Whose business
That's nice, isn't it?
Teaching people what to do.
Okay,
Well,
which
yes,
one
I
is
know
over there, but I
what
can't
to do it
see it.
myself.
Oh, but I need.
The password for the
Yeah.
Wi-Fi.
Here, hold on.
Is it Fairfield?
This is up there.
Fairfield staff? Yes.
Where is it?
It's up there.
Somewhere up on the thing.
Can you hear us now?
Oh, Mark, it's Fairfield Guest.
Yeah.
The password is happy with a capital H.
Sorry.
375 exclamation point.
We can hear you. We just can't see anything but a dark screen.
What's exclamation here? Blind here.
Okay, so who else is on?
I know.
Yeah, absolutely.
That wasn't Jack.
Select video.
Guest. It says guest.
Just go up to my workaround. Started.
Oh, guest.
Are you able to get in, Mark?
Yeah, I logged in, so I'm gonna get into the,
They forwarded you one.
I'm not sure which email. Say. Mark, do you remember which?
Just go to Zoom and I can give you the meeting ID.
Oh, okay.
Mark's back.
All right. Go to Zoom. There's a meeting ID, which I have here, and the passcode. It should get you. Yes, the meeting ID is
592
820
820 There's a pound up there.
Okay, so you did.
There's no, okay. Password.
500
0
401.
401. Okay.
No video.
All right. How do I share?
Check it out.
12 million in.
Not that one. That's okay. Oh, no, you know what? That's all right. I'll take this one.
No,
You could just email me the presentation. I could look at it that way.
I cannot email.
It's 40.
You want to go old school on this, Mark?
Okay, how do we share it?
I don't know.
Are you on Zoom?
Yeah, we're on Zoom.
I'll let you hear it.
We gotta mute it.
Yeah, I mean.
Oh, you want to know how to share screen?
There you
go.
Gotta mute it.
I just watch YouTube. Or I ask my daughter.
I can see you now.
Oh, you can see
I can't see. It's working, I think.
There we go.
There we go.
There it is.
Can you hear you?
Okay, good.
Can you hear everybody? Okay, good.
And he'll say, do this and this.
Okay.
So now my great granddaughter's in Massachusetts.
It's fine to them. They hit that.
Anyway, you know.
That's funny. That's funny. What part of Massachusetts?
A little town called Georgetown.
120.
There's a lot of background
But
noise.
I went to college up there.
Jackie, it's hard to hear you. Is the volume up?
I can't really hear. There's so much background noise. Have they closed one of their links? I think they're duplicating. It's echoing.
That's the only way that they don't get lost.
It's not a Zoom. It's not set up as a Zoom room. It's coming off my personal computer. I made this room the host. This thing is messed up. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do this at all. So
what if Jackie has questions? She
I have to
texts us.
stop. I'm not taking on audio. I'm not doing video. I mean, I have to reset this thing.
Before we start, I wanted to introduce my partner in crime, my brother from another mother.
No crimes, no crimes.
Only
good things.
Yeah, only good thing. Alex Lakek is the other principal of Sunshine Acquisition.
Talk loud.
Yeah, just by way of background, I've been a Fairfield resident for 22 years. Been married, have 3 children. They all attend public schools here, and we love the town.
Okay.
I'm going to be very brief. I think Mark has this all set up finally, so we're ready to go. But the property is 2179 Post Road. You're familiar with it, probably. The old cigar store. Mark has a site plan. It's there's an assemblage of parcels here, and I have to tell you, I get excited about a lot of my projects. As you'll see in a minute, I am particularly excited about this particular development. It's a mixed-use development, as Mark will explain. We're going to be seeking a number of amendments of the center design business district regulations, but they are all, by and large, recommendations of the current draft POCD. So we're trying to mirror very carefully what the P&Z has been working very hard on in terms of trying to articulate a vision for the center design district. And that vision obviously includes mixed use, and it obviously includes affordable housing. One thing that has impressed me very early on and throughout the process working with Mark and Alex is they didn't want to do an 8-30G because they believe strongly that a mixed-use development is better for the town. And plus, they have a significant, and I'm not trying to embarrass them, but they have a very real, beyond many clients I've seen, a real commitment to affordable housing. At one point in time, when I first talked to Mark about this, he was saying, let's make an amendment where we'll make it 30% affordable housing as part of this particular approach. That's really not feasible, but 20% is. So that the amendment that we're going to be bringing forward to the Planning and Zoning Commission, along with all the technical things, will also include a provision for 20% of the units, which Mark will elaborate on the number of units, et cetera, being affordable, deed restricted as affordable pursuant to the standards of 8-30G. So Mark, I'm going to let you take over and kind of give everybody an orientation here.
All right. My name is Mark Andrea. I'm a licensed architect. I've been a Fairfield resident for 24 years. Just like Alex, my daughter went to public school here. She's out of the house, but Fairfield is our home. We love it here. I got involved I volunteer my time serving this community. I serve on various building committees, commissions. I also practice architecture out of our office here on Sherman Street. Jessica is the other architect in our office, and this young man just joined in our practice. Will be joining our practice in June. And like I said, Alex and I, we are the managing member for this for SAG, and a little bit of background about this site. I've been trying to develop this property for about 12 years now. And finally, I met with a partner, and we in sync our vision for this site. We're not your typical developer who wants to maximize our profit, and this is just not a way to give back to this community who gives so much to all of us. Alex's daughter is still going to public school. Mine is gone. I could pack my stuff and leave, but that's not what we want. And you all know there's a housing crisis. 24 years ago, when I moved here, this town, a $50,000 salary, you could buy a house under 300 grand. Doesn't exist anymore. 20 years ago, when Alex met his wife, he told me he rented a little one-bedroom house on Reef Road for $1,500. That doesn't exist anymore. That's where we're coming from. Our proposal is catering to folks like us, young family who look at Fairfield. As we speak now, there might be people unloading a U-Haul packed with all their dreams and hopes, making this community their new home. That was us 24 years ago. That was us 20 years ago. This is our vision for the building. This corner here, we envision the ground floor will have, let me give you a better, the corner of Lindbergh, we envision there will be a public plaza, with a coffee shop and our office entrance. We could relocate it, but right now that's our current plan. We'll have some retail, and at the corner of Post Road and Fairfield Place, we envision there will be a restaurant there. We talked to a couple local operators, a couple friends of mine who own restaurants in town. We like the way they run their businesses. They have strong interest in this location. Most of our parkings are pretty much located underground. We have some surface parkings, about maybe 7 of them, and the remaining is sheltered in the parking garage. We introduced a mini park that created enough buffer between us and some of our residential neighbors. And that mini park, as we speak, is being designed, and at our PNC meeting, we will show our architectural design for that. You can barely see the parkings, and I can show you different elevations. This is from Fairfield Post Road. This is Fairfield. This is Lindbergh and Post Road. And this is our courtyard. This development, you'll see a parking lot. This is strategically, aesthetically screened. It's a straight shot from the Post Road. We play with different materials to break the facade, to articulate different transition. We create different indentations. And this is in line with what currently the town considering. We can do 5-story building there. This is a 4-story proposal. We had our code review. There is nothing really that we had to change in this proposal. We have sufficient parking for our site, whether it's for the restaurant use, for the coffee shop, for the retail, for office, for our residents. We are proposing 20% affordable. The total units in this is 40 units. A small rental, and this will allow us to capture different market in this town. We're not looking for those who can only afford 10,000 more for 1-bedroom apartment. That's why these are small units. They're between 500. We have few over 1,000, about 1,000. So we want people to have different options, and we think this will create a lot of vibrancy in that corner of town. We're not comparing our building with everybody else, but there are other buildings in close proximity with similar scale. And the public amenities is a way to encourage people to walk. We have a lot of bike racks all over the place. We have the public plaza. So hopefully you come down, you get a cup of coffee, and you can use the retail space, or our tenants who might be living upstairs, instead of using their cars, they might walk. They're about 15 minutes to the train station. They can use their bikes. They just can hang out in our public plaza. The mini park ideas is, we heard from some of the neighbors, these are small residential streets, the kids are playing there. So coupling the buffer in the little park, so this way the neighborhood can interact with our tenants. They can come and use our parks if they want to. We'll be open, let's say maybe around 8 a.m. and we close around 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. That's just another way to create some kind of community engagement. And with that, I don't think I have much to say.
Well, I think you've said a lot. I mean, again, it's unique in that it's, to my knowledge, it's the first 8-30, it's the first development, not an 8-30G, where we didn't think our presentation was that big. No, but it's I think a very unique approach by two, as we've said, local developers with roots in the community, where we want to do a mixed-use project, but with a high ratio codified into the regs of affordable housing. We hope the commission, because this will become our amendment our amendments that we are proposing will in fact have application beyond this development to the in the center design district. So it's going to set a benchmark for mixed-use developments in terms of the affordable housing contribution, which is significantly higher than what the regs currently provide, which is 10%. So we're doubling the commitment, not only of my clients here, but hopefully the town through the adoption of these regulations, these amendments to affordable housing, especially in the center district where I think it's so well suited for, walkability, public transit, and so on and so forth. So very exciting. And again, timing wise on this one, we hope to get this filed sooner than later so that we can get on the agenda and, bring this to the P&Z. And, we've had our code review meeting and I think, as you can see, I think we're pretty much ready to go. We've done our traffic report, et cetera, et cetera.
I had a couple of questions. Sure. It's still 32, I think, one bedrooms and 8 studios.
I believe. I believe we have 36 one bedroom and 4 studios. Yeah.
And I remember in January, I think you mentioned that it was a combination of 60% AMI and 80% AMI.
Correct. So we are proposing 20% and 10% at 60% AMI and 10% at 80% AMI.
I'm sorry.
60 and 80. 60% and 80%.
Half and half.
And is there going to be less? Is there going to be less of a requirement for street parking now, the way you envision it? Then I just got the impression that maybe there's even less need than you contemplated in January.
Well, currently, some folks park on the street, right? I mean, on the post road, there's no restriction when it comes to parking. We're not relying on off-street parking to meet our parking requirement.
Yeah, our parking will comply with the parking regulations as they've been suggested in the new POCD, so that we're again looking to be parking compliant. We are going to build into our package of amendments the adoption of those parking regulations, but they're nothing new to the commission because that's what they've been discussing.
So it's just that Lindbergh and Deerfield Place, they're tiny communities.
Correct.
And so there isn't a lot of distance between. I was just wondering, would the neighbors be receptive to all of a sudden have all this parking, I guess, in front of their homes that they hadn't?
Well, we not so in front of our development we have some parking restriction, right? We're not relying on off-street parking to meet the need of our development. So currently I live on Burr Street. I can go and park on Fairfield Place or Lindbergh. Unless the town put resident only or no parking, there's nothing preventing anyone from parking there.
Understood. What you're saying is that you have sufficient parking.
We have sufficient parking.
I think that's the key.
Right.
We know we're going to have to
I always say.
convince and justify with the commission that we have sufficient on-street parking, on-site parking. But I think we can do that because we're adopting the standards for parking for the various uses that their POCD study has recommended. So hopefully that will be sufficient in their minds because we're basically letting them write the script.
When we make our pre-app in January, we highlight all the recommendation from the POCD that was adopted. And basically our project will serve as a model for all those to apply all these recommendations. So we're not bringing anything out of
There's nothing in our amendments that should be surprising to the commission because basically we're using their script. And that includes the parking.
I remember that the commission was favorably impressed at that pre-app. And I don't know if you made any modifications since then, based on the feedback you got.
Yeah, we made some improvement with the exterior. Yep. You know, we fully developed, you know, our concept for the open plazas and the park. During our code review, there was nothing that came up. Fire has no issue with, you know, with accessing the properties or getting under the building. Our drainage, we submitted a full drainage report. Everything came kosher from the
WPCA.
Yeah. We expect our sewer, at the next meeting, our sewer will be approved because we have way below what's required as far as capacity. We can do a much larger project and we'll still comply. But we made it clear in January, we believe, as an architect, I believe, we strongly believe that the mixed use is more beneficial to us.
And the town.
And the town, yeah.
And you were pretty committed to the restaurant being an integral part of that.
Yeah. Yeah, we think it's it creates some vibrancy and it encourages people to, you know, come and use our ground.
And it's going to be the kind of restaurant. I mean, obviously we have 40 tenants, right? Yeah. So this is going to be this is not going to be a nightclubby type restaurant. We want to. Mark and I and Alex have talked about. No, I'm serious because sometimes you hear a restaurant and you say, "Oh, well, it's especially with close proximity to Lindbergh and what." But this will be a nice dining restaurant,
family dining,
because we want to have happy tenants. And you wouldn't have happy tenants if, you know, we put no offense, the Seagrave there. No offense to Mr. Collins, who's on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So,
yeah, the few folks that we talk to who have interest in our property, like the kind of restaurant that they run in this town. And if we were to have tenant restaurant that run their business like a nightclub, our main problem is not going to be our neighbors. Right. It's going to be our tenant moving out because, you know, if folks going to work earlier, they're taking the train and they can't sleep, it will be unbearable. And I can guarantee you that nightclub will be gone. And this is a place that, you know, if we get it approved and we're going to run this place ourselves.
It's designed commercial, but is it abutting residential?
So we're
going to seek to change the zone to neighborhood design because, again, the Planning and Zoning Commission has favorably been discussing the extension, and Mark is aware of this, the extension of the neighborhood design district, you know, and this center design, excuse me, center design, and this is a step in that direction.
Yeah. One of the properties abutting us on Fairfield Place is in the split zone. Commercial and B zone, and the one on Lindbergh somehow I think was a commercial zone, but I would have to check. But that probably was rezoned to a B zone because the line kind of jogs around in a very funky way.
Yeah. True. Yeah, so that's.
I noticed some with their solar panels on the back of your roof. Like,
yes.
what other green, Is there anything for sewage and drainage that you're also?
So in our site plan, in couple spot, we're thinking of, after the code review, one of the recommendation from engineering was to try to incorporate a couple rain gardens. Actually, that came from zoning. So we already changed the site plan to incorporate that. Let me see if before we had this diagonal pathway here. So we remove it. So this is the latest one. So we would have a rain garden in this corner. And then here we had another diagonal pathway and we moved that. So there would be the second rain garden. There will be other opportunities with the park, but now this is being designed with a landscape architect. So I can't wait to see what he's gonna come up with. As far as the building is concerned, we are going to use a lot of durable materials, triple pane windows to minimize heat loss, less energy usage. And our solar install, I talked to we're actually doing an install right now in a private residence. And a great thing we find out, we can use that to generate electricity and help offset some of our residents' energy usage. We could do it where some of it could go to maybe some of the affordable units. So this way, their costs can remain the same for a while. Or we can use some of that for our market rate. So we have flexibility with our solar install. And then we have amenities throughout the buildings. We're gonna have co-working space only for our tenant, gym, fitness. Our rooftop will have outdoor spaces where anyone can congregate. One of the things that came out of the code review, the 5th floor zoning was not too crazy about it. So they suggested that we remove it. So our whole approach with this whole thing, we wanted to be very collaborative. We wanted to take some of the recommendation from POCD, and I had several meetings with James Wendt, Emmeline, and everybody, and I said, I want you to look at this thing, not just us developer coming in and want to submit something. We want you to give us some feedback. This is our vision. You as a planner, what would you like to do in that part of town, in that section of town, and taking into account all these other recommendations that we pay a lot of money, and we, a lot of these recommendations. How can we implement some of these ideas here? And they were very open. They said, yeah, these are some of the things we would like to see in your project. And there were not a lot of push and pull. If they approve this could be maybe the affordable ratio is maybe a little higher than most. That's what we believe in.
On that note, we will leave you to your hopeful, favorable considerations and deliberations. And again, we'd certainly value your support before planning and zoning. We hope you think their vision is worthy of that support, which I think it is because of the real strong commitment that's evidenced to affordable housing in the center design district, which will set a standard for further developers who want to do mixed use in that district.
Thank you all for coming in.
It's really
thank
attractive.
you for proposing this.
All right, thank you.
Look forward to seeing you again.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks. See you.
Crack open a window.
Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you, everybody.
Mark, how much time do you think we need for the 5 duplexes?
I'm gonna set it up. I probably need about 5-10 minutes, and then I'm not gonna request any action this evening. But I wanted to get some feedback from you. I don't think it's quite ready for your consideration. Get some initial thoughts from
Mark?
Yeah.
Did you turn off the AH
What?
camera back on?
Yeah, I think I may have to
We make the dialogue.
stop the meeting
Yeah.
and then go back.
Good night, everybody.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think it really got messed up when we plugged
Yeah.
into that.
Yeah.
So for those, I don't know who's still on, but for those following, I think we're gonna come off and then I'm gonna dial back in. So just hang out momentarily, please. Let's see if I can-
Mark, are they asking for anything that's out of the ordinary?
Hang on.
I think the design
Are we back? Can you see and hear us? Yay. Yeah, I think we're okay.
So I think Steve has some thoughts he wanted to.
Sure.
Okay, so.
Sorry. Now you have my undivided attention.
So are they asking for anything that's out of the ordinary?
They are not asking for anything out of the ordinary. They are attempting to, as Attorney Fallon indicated, mimic the language in the draft POCD and in our proposed affordable or our approved affordable housing plan to the extent possible. They are proposing to increase the level of affordability on their own and propose targeting a 60% AMI unit, which is, for a private developer unheard of without some level of incentive or subsidy. So, credit where credit is due. There has been they have done some outreach to the immediate neighbors, abutters, as we always encourage. They have gotten some feedback. Not all of it is positive. Obviously, there's, I think, concern probably relative to traffic, parking, other impacts, some of which are, legitimate concerns that people may have. How will it be screened? How will it affect my property, my view, that type of thing. So they're working through those issues. I suspect, part of it too is change, which is always something that's hard for anyone to deal with, the unknown. So I don't expect it to be, universally supported. There'll be certainly some folks that will not be favorably inclined toward it, but I think there's a lot to like here. So I give them credit for, going through this very, as Mark indicated, collaborative process, being open to feedback. It has been a long time in coming, not the 12 years in design, but obviously a good bit of it is looking at the site and getting site control. He's meeting it's 4 stories. Yeah. So it's, I think it's a good project overall. And certainly there is a need for this type of housing. Initially our thought was that this would kind of mirror what was likely to occur development-wise across the street, but that doesn't appear to be the case. But in which case, the design architecturals kind of, again, probably are compatible with what's being suggested for the former Exide batteries.
Exide, they're going to do 100 units.
What's that?
Exide's going to do 100 units?
No, it's a car dealership. Car dealership.
I missed that.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It is, but we'll leave that for another day. We can all, we spent some time expressing our collective disappointment to the property owners, but you know, they own the property, they can do with it what they want.
They own
So
all the dealerships in town?
the people who own the property are leasing it to Penske Automotive. So
But they own the dealership across the street, or they own the lot across
they
the
own the former Hyundai dealership. Yes, yes.
So at 4 stories, it's bigger than everything else in the neighborhood except for
Wedding cake.
the wedding cake office.
Yeah, which is bigger.
But they're not asking for any other variances in terms of setback
No.
or height or anything, so it fits with the lot.
I think it looks good.
You know,
Right
the design
downtown.
is.
Yeah, it's downtown, and it's not right on top of it. It's a big property, and they have a park in the back, like a little buffer.
Yeah.
It looks a lot better than.
Yeah, I
that's
like
just St.
it.
Thomas. I mean,
For sure.
that's
That's a postage.
Yeah, I mean, it's natural that the neighbors would have each reinsurance. And I mean, I'm pretty familiar, this 2 streets are really quite tight, the houses are quite close
Yeah.
together.
Yep.
And, but, you know, they certainly are staying within the letter and spirit of the
the
regulations.
proposed road diet, will that impact post road at that point or no?
It's around there, yeah.
It's around there, but I think it stops short of there.
I think it's further
There's the
south.
diet
Starts at the Southport Bridge and goes
Right,
up
and then
to-
goes down to Pine Creek.
Well, because you've got 2 lanes, like, so it's basically gonna.
I
They're
know
gonna
I
have a
read
third
it,
center
I
lane
just can't
for a
remember
turning
what
lane.
it is.
That's what the state.
Can you
wants to do.
explain what the diet is? I don't know.
Well, the state is asking for our.
We're just trying to reallocate some of the public right of way to make it more defined in terms of.
It'd be a
They
dedicated
wanna-
turning lane.
They want to make the roadway narrower?
They're gonna reassign portions of the right of way to provide dedicated turn lanes and to make it a little bit more, not so, I don't know, hodgepodge.
Yeah, it's a little funky now where you're coming from.
No.
It will slow it down.
It will slow it down.
By the law firm.
But the state's gonna do it. They were just asking for a reaction. So, the state.
It's gonna slow down traffic, is that what
Yeah,
you're saying?
absolutely.
Yeah,
As they're coming in.
Eastbound.
It's not already slow
Yeah.
enough. He needed to like slow to a halt.
Well,
Although
they
maybe
speed coming in.
Could be
to-
on the
Because
other
it was
side. People
dedicated.
turning.
Oh, we're kind of going off topic.
All right, yeah.
Is there any action that
The, I guess the question would be with this one and item 4. Both of these are looking for your support. So again, I don't think that there's no need necessarily to act precipitously tonight if you want to give it some more thought, because I don't expect there'll be a public hearing before our next Affordable Housing Committee meeting. So both 4 and 6 seeking support from the Affordable Housing Committee based on a pending application plan.
So I wanted to drive by 4, and 6 I could vote on, I like it. Thumbs up.
It's up to you guys. Yeah, we can do it tonight.
My intention would be to address them both at the same time.
Okay. Yep. No worries either way. I don't think, again, it's not going to hold them up. And, you know, the one on Royal, I will say that this is one dry piece of property in that area.
Because it's the Rooster River area.
Yep. But it's completely above the flood area, flood zone. So
The butts 95?
it's very
It
close.
looks like it's off,
but-
like near Commerce.
And it's very close. This lot is very close to a Resident C lot. It's one of, again, this parcel has 2 street frontage. So it does allow for a more robust development, even though I think this is a very modest expansion. So, again, but I would encourage you all to take a look.
I couldn't find the documents that related to the January presentation that he used
Oh, the link was not good?
The link is not good.
Oh.
So we tried a couple of times. So I wonder, are there documents that we could get access to? It's
Yeah,
not
let me-
obviously changed.
let me
so
check.
It's not obviously changed. The proposal.
Which documents?
So the prep documents related to this pre-app presentation for January 9th.
Oh, for that meeting?
We're no longer available.
Oh, from the
For
PNC site.
pre-app for what?
For 2179.
For 2179.
Yeah.
So you want to see the pre-application?
I think it'd be nice if whatever they have, I think it'd be nice if we had a chance to have it at our leisure to take a look at it.
Yep.
Makes sense.
So does Steve or anyone, do you feel strongly that we ought to take action tonight, or do we need?
No, I'm ready to.
You're enthused.
He's very excited.
Yeah, but that's all.
I think Mark can tell, if Mark Andre asks, or John Fallon asks, we can tell that we're enthused.
That's true. That's positive.
Right, we're enthused?
Yeah, absolutely.
Gretchen just wrote that word
I'm
down.
ready to move in.
Brian's enthused.
I know, right?
Brian says with the deadpan face.
So, okay.
All right, so the last item that I wanted to bring to your attention concerns a proposed acquisition of 5 existing duplex buildings within Fairfield. So as members of this body may know, we have undertaken in the last few years kind of a pilot initiative using funds through our community development block grant monies to buy individual single-family duplex and triplex homes, usually maybe 2 projects in any given year. With the understanding, basically, the assistance is in the form of a declining balance loan. The restriction period is 40 years. There's an early opt-out provision associated with the note, so that if the developer or investor decides year 10, for example, that the program no longer works for him and he wants out, he can do that and just pay back what is owed balance on it. There is no interest on it. This is how we had structured assistance under our multifamily rehab program for many years, which we had a hard time actually, getting investors or landlords to participate in the program. So the terms are relatively generous. You can't find 0% money anywhere else. The declining balance note that converts fully to a grant at the end of the restriction period. Again, pretty generous terms. But even with that, we had a difficult time finding landlords that wanted to participate in the program, with the understanding that in return, we were asking for an affordable fair market rent. So we had done some acquisition with nonprofits. We had done work with Operation Hope to do acquisition and rehab, scattered site, permanent supportive housing for years, until that organization doesn't really have the capacity to do additional housing development at the time. So we did have a private investor approach us, having read an article in the newspaper about folks with housing choice vouchers that were unable to find housing in communities like Fairfield, having to return those vouchers potentially. And he said, I would like to do something about that. So we did partner with him. We typically were providing 10% of the acquisition costs. We were able to help him secure bank financing for 70 to 80% of the note. And based on the payment standards that were then in effect with the Housing Authority, he was able to get conventional mortgage financing. We provided gap finance of 10%, basically up to $30,000 a unit. And we were able to put about 10, or I think we're up to 12 units into our program to date with deed restrictions. So it's not perfect because the payment standards are very attractive. That's why they offer a payment standard beyond to get investors, landlords to participate in the Housing Choice Voucher Program. But some of the units were probably naturally occurring affordable housing before, which made their acquisition targets. And so, as you create housing opportunities for one group, perhaps you're not creating housing opportunities for other groups that are not so lucky to have a housing choice voucher. So we were okay with just doing kind of one-offs here and there, just do a couple projects over the course of several years. But word has spread far and wide amongst the developer community, and we had this group here had approached me about a year ago, asked for information about the program, we told them what we were up to, and so they've come forward with a proposed acquisition of a portfolio that includes 5 duplexes, 9 of which are currently occupied. We'll get to that because that does create a complicating factor. The rents for those units currently are pretty affordable. The current owner, who is elderly and looking to move on, sell his portfolio, had not raised the rents in many, many years. So we don't know the income eligibility of the folks that currently live there, but they're getting a pretty good deal for these units. They're nothing. They're very modest housing units. Look at them. And so what they're asking us to do is participate and provide some financing. He has I think I shared a letter of intent with a few of you just to give you an flavor of it. But it's a $2.875 million purchase price for the 5 units. We're probably going to need, that's above what we have. It's not atypical right now with properties the way they're selling. We're going to need an appraisal to obviously support that purchase price. The seller is providing a note for a little over $2 million, or 70% of the purchase price is an interest-only 5-year note. So he's taking back at 5.5% interest only. So there's a balloon payment at the end of the 5 years. He's looking for us to come in with about $500,000 in financing his requirements. So there are a couple issues with this. One, I think I mentioned, we have 9 of the 10 that are currently occupied. So there's issues with regard to displacement, relocation, benefits that might need to be accounted for. The subsidy that's being asked for is a bit more than what we typically ask. This is on the order, probably closer to 17% of the overall cost. We're thinking around 10%. Certainly, I think the one thing that's in favor of this, obviously, we have an opportunity to lock up 5 existing properties that provide housing for 40 years. If we didn't participate, likelihood these properties will be sold eventually anyway. Probably the folks that are living there will get moved out at some point. People will pay more appropriate market rents. So again, there's this opportunity to try to keep them in the program to some extent. The other issue that we have here is, I guess overall it's just the $500,000. It does. There is some expectation initially that, I guess it's really the existing tenant base. So the expectation from the investor is at some point they want to move on and adjust the rents upward to reflect the current payment standard, then in effect with Fairfield Housing Authority. We need to talk to the Housing Authority a little bit more to understand their capacity to accommodate that within the existing funding constraints. But it's it's beyond what we can accommodate through community development block grant dollars. And that's why they do not need renovations. So there is no renovations in his development program.
Has anybody looked at the units?
It is subject to inspections. We can ask for a copy of the inspection report. We have seen just the exterior.
I'd be surprised if it didn't meet something. Kitchens, baths, heating.
Well, his operating pro forma does provide for replacement reserves and things of that nature, but it does not pencil out based on the existing rent.
So Mark, these would be 40%. This would be different from the current program, in that these would be this 40 years deed restricted?
So part of the conversation, you know, when we initially had a conversation in terms of what we were doing in this space, we explained the program that we currently have, which was, you know, providing essentially a small amount of gap financing, 10%. You know, that's secured through a promissory note, declining balance loan, converts to a grant over 40-year term with an early opt-out provision. You know, this is a little bit more than that. And so, you know, we've been kicking around in our office whether or not to ask for, you know, more, in the sense of more of a permanent, you know, 40-year ironclad as part of our commitment. If we were willing and able to provide that level of financing, that might be reasonable to expect in return. The population that he's looking to serve, again, typically are folks with incomes at or below 50% AMI, so a lower income threshold. Again, I think we're wrestling ourselves with the existing tenant base and understanding, you know, what's owed to them in terms of providing an exit plan.
So you think you could characterize the gap between what the tenants are paying and what you would have to charge as being substantial?
Yeah, currently with the existing rents that are in place, even with some adjustment, it does not pencil out. It does pencil out with the payment standards because, right, and those are renewable on an annual basis. They have to be approved by the Housing Authority and approved by HUD. They're providing 120% of the small fair market rent, it's based on bedroom and zip code, and it's a pretty substantial dollar. But again, what the Housing Authority has to work with is a budget, and they have to allocate that budget depending on, you know, people's incomes and the gap they have to finance up to the payment standard. So, you know, I think we need to understand what is their capacity to even provide that on this level, this scale. We're able to do it 2 units at a time, but, you know, now we're talking 10. So, so we need to understand that.
So you don't know if the people who live there would qualify for a housing?
We do not. We don't know
Right.
anything about their income.
I hate to see.
What's that?
I hate to see them have to go.
Well, that's so the only issue for us on the counter argument is at some point that's likely to happen anyway.
Well, yeah, I get that.
So if he's putting it for sale, we just have to
Right.
have somebody that's willing to work with us on a.
That's true.
So.
But taking money out of the housing trust fund, that leads to 10 people being displaced.
Well, we're gonna have to provide somebody's gonna have to provide relocation benefits. Yeah.
Right.
That's why we're having a conversation about this in general. Again, I think we've kind of come to terms with that in some capacity, in that at some point, given the current owner's predisposition to sell the asset, likelihood is that
It would probably be a worse scenario.
At least in this instance, we could provide for a
Right.
reasonable
Right.
plan by which they can have time to find other accommodations,
Are they 5
as well as
units
provide
together?
relocation benefits or incorporate that into.
They're not. They're all scattered.
Yeah, they're scattered. It's
A bunch of them are pretty nearby.
they're scattered, but they're not like next door to each other, but they're in the same general neighborhood.
Over by Canfield, Bloomfield.
Yeah.
2 of them. They're all.
4 of them.
They're pretty much all.
And then the garden is.
So 9, we have 8 units at this new building. Too bad.
So
8 of them over
what would be coming to you at some point would be, is this an appropriate use of the housing trust fund to create a program whereby investors such as this could apply with certain restrictions. And what are those terms of restrictions? So
I like the program in general. I'm just worried about the tenants and
oh, me
rehab.
too. Yeah, me too. So that's something I think we have to deal with, and I think that would have to be part of the whole plan.
Sorry, if the tenants have been living there for such a long time, but the rent hasn't increased, maybe approach them and see if they want to take advantage of this.
Well, I think the intent would be, again, there's some incentive here to move it into a program whereby you're providing at least, I think, the vast majority, but maybe some could be set aside for folks without housing choice vouchers. But it's really folks that have the gold ticket, the voucher, that would be able to.
So in the long run, you're still helping people, and if we didn't, those people, it sounds like they'd be displaced.
I think at some point it's
Anyway,
reasonable
right?
to
Yeah.
assume that the property would be sold, and
Yeah.
folks there will likely have to find alternative housing anyway.
Right.
That's the reality.
Right. So it nets out.
So in this instance, what we're looking at is what is the exit plan to give people a reasonable amount of time and give them benefits so that they can find suitable housing elsewhere.
So how much is
Assuming they're not income.
500,000.
Well, yeah, but some are income eligible and they decide not to go get that golden ticket.
Well, they can't really. It's not
Because
really. Yeah.
they have rent that they've been there for such a long time that they're able to afford.
Yeah.
Right, so if we're talking about that, and then we're just telling you they have to meet and go apply. And
It's not an easy
and then,
one.
And then they're only eligible, right? You said it's like every year you have to like
So the other option,
So
again, we don't know
like
the
new people,
we
like,
don't know the
how does that
capacity
work?
of the housing authority to do this. Is there's two forms of housing choice vouchers. One is project based and one is choice voucher. So project based stays with the unit. Housing choice voucher is with the individual tenant, and it's portable. So again, there's I don't believe that she has capacity to do that within the budget, but it is. And it's not like she can automatically, she has to go through a process by which she can assign those project-based vouchers here. So it's worthwhile thinking about. Again, I don't think it's quite ready for your consideration. We've been playing with the numbers a little bit ourselves. I do think the current investment groups, they're within their due diligence period, so they have a finite period of time. We can always ask for an extension. It may not be granted, but we can ask for one from the seller. So it's there are a couple things that we want to drill down a little bit more on before we come back. But the idea would be, is this an appropriate use of housing trust fund monies? And some of the consideration would be, even with a 40-year restriction, what we've been using housing trust fund dollars before is for acquisition by either a town or a nonprofit actor that essentially permanently restricts it as a formal housing. So
instead of 40, do a 99-year lease. I mean, that you're dancing. You're right in the. I mean, effectively, it's the same thing, except you just have a shorter.
The reason we did, and no one,
and the opt out, which is not. I mean, it should be a. It should be a.
So the only reason we do 40 is because that ties to 830G, and the financing is all 20 or 30-year notes, so it's not based on that. And the 40-year declining balance loan agreements that we've done to date, limited though they may be, most likely will not qualify for housing unit equivalency anyway, because the state would view those early opt-out provisions basically a year-to-year type arrangement. So we thought it was worthwhile doing a smaller scale, using community development block grant dollars for that purpose, with some success. But now it's like, do you want to expand that opportunity beyond this? And again, there comes with some trepidation because there is an element of naturally occurring affordable housing out there that we're then selecting and then putting it into a program which benefits a certain group of folks with vouchers, but there's pluses and minuses here. So
and there's just not a lot of there's not like a prepay, like there's no penalty for 10 years or whatever. Just market keeps rising. There's no. I mean, there should be an adjusting penalty.
Well, we haven't discussed terms with this group, so we could certainly come back to them with a term sheet that's more in our favor.
So this has 70% seller financing. Our money would be 17%, and equity would be 13%. That doesn't seem quite right.
Well, again, that was their ask. We would probably come in with that. So
okay.
Probably 15 and 50.
Percentages against the just for
70% purchase money mortgage, 17% from the trust fund, and 13% equity from the developers.
We probably would come in with a 15% matching that. But again, we'll need a couple more pieces of information before we come back. The idea is, I guess I wanted to get a sense as whether or not we thought something like this would be an appropriate use of housing trust fund dollars. So we create a program around it, and if so, what would you be looking for in return?
So I think it's really a good idea. It's a good program, as long as we get some assurance that they're going to be affordable units for a while, a long while, and that the developers got some skin in the game. But it does give us 10 units, and if those get sold to other folks, tenants will have to move probably sooner rather than later.
Yeah, without any relocation assistance.
Yes.
It'd be interesting to see too. I mean, I guess I'd be interested to know, is there an opportunity cost to the housing authority, and what's the all-in cost beyond what has to come from the housing trust fund in terms of what the town and the housing authority together have to put up?
Well, that's where I don't know of any other capital investment other than honoring. If somebody ports in with a housing choice voucher, they make up the difference between what that person's paying, 30% of their income.
So it's not as if we're being limited because they have to use a voucher that they can't use for somebody else. Right? So it's just a qualification.
Yes.
Could we increase the units? Could we get one ADU?
Well, they suggested that there might be expansion possibilities, but I don't want to underwrite it based on that. No, we've had the conversation with other folks, and really you have to just look at what you currently have versus what might come down eventually. But there are some limited opportunities to actually create more units. So that's it.
Okay, so we'll continue to study this. So looks like we're not going to finish our agenda.
Sorry.
Talk
I knew it was going to be a long meeting.
But so we have the affordable housing. We have the big issues we've been working with, which is inclusionary zoning, parking, and middle housing, that all relate to the POCD. We've got the POCD document itself in terms of how do we weigh in on that. So maybe it's worthwhile just talking for a minute about where the POCD stands. And that is, they have had 2 long discussions. Jump in here, Bob. They've had 2 long discussions on April 23rd and April 30th. And they're contemplating another one, which they hadn't scheduled as of last week, but it will be soon. And my takeaway from that was that they're going to want one more long discussion before they engage public input. So we probably have a little bit of time before we conclude the comment. So we should, if we don't get to it tonight, we should soon, I think, look at the overall plan as it stands right now.
Or it's hard to hear, could the microphone be closer to you, or can you speak a little louder?
We'll try this, Jackie. So did you hear much of what I said up to now? Okay. POCD meetings, April 23rd, April 30th, another one coming up. Before public input will be sought. They are looking for feedback from us on inclusionary zoning. Emmeline mentioned that at the last session, that we've done a lot of good work here, and I think you ought to just wait until Affordable Housing comes up with some suggestions on what inclusionary zoning ought to be. So the onus is on us to do that, I guess. So we have some work to do in that area, but I think there are other areas that we probably also want to find one, certainly including parking, middle housing, and probably some other areas. Bob, I think you said, we agree that a lot of good changes have been made in terms of the discussions that have taken place so far. One concern we've had is there enough flexibility here in this document to allow us to proceed the way we've been proceeding and make recommendations? Are there going to be any obstacles to what we're trying to do in terms of the way the plan is created? It doesn't look like we're going to encounter that.
Yeah, I think that's the crux of the issue before this committee, and we don't have to weigh in with regard to comments on the draft POCD if the draft POCD is encompassing enough, provides enough flexibility. I mean, these are broad strategic areas, so it's fine to say consider increasing the inclusionary or set-aside requirements. We don't have to specify it needs to be 15 or needs to be 20% of the POCD document. So I think my sense is that it is sufficiently flexible and touches on all the high notes, but I think it's good for all of us to take another look at the revised draft and make sure that we all agree. This is the defining document now for the next 10 years. And if we're going to propose any changes to our regulations, which is the next step, zoning regulation rewrite, but beyond that, if we were to come in with a text amendment, we would like to make sure it's consistent with the overall plan document. So I think that's really the issue that
Could we get a sense from either Jim or Emmeline as to whether there'll be another turnaround on the draft? Because my sense after these two meetings is that much of what's in there is a little too specific than what the commission would prefer, and they'd like to couch it more generally in terms of considering. So I'm almost thinking that if there is another iteration prior to the public hearing, maybe subsequent to the next special meeting of the commission, that if they plan on doing a turn on the document, I think it makes sense for us to just kind of wait and see what that looks like. Because right now it's sort of a hodgepodge of very specific recommendations and there are broad strokes. And I think their direction, clearly, my sense from the commission is that they want more broad strokes and less text amendment work. And so I think Emmeline and Jim need to back some of that out of the current draft. And then I think we're 90% of the way there. Our prior discussions, our prior meetings, we have talked conceptually about the need to identify spots where we can opine on a number of these in a very general fashion. We could do that pretty soon, I think. But it may be worth our while just to wait and see if they are going to do another term. Because I think at the public hearing, the public can only respond to what's in the draft. They can't bring up something that's not in it. And so I would think it would behoove the staff to make it as current and as comprehensive, given the feedback they've gotten from the commission. They got a lot of good feedback from the commission, and I think they may have a lot of takeaways, maybe they're reshaping the document. I don't know. So if we could find that out, I think that would give us a direction.
And when.
Yeah, what the timing is.
At the timetable.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think that we should proceed with some dispatch when we include your zoning.
No
So
question.
they started to talk about specific percentages toward the end of the April 30th meeting. And that's where MLA intervened and basically said, you know, the affordable housing is doing a lot of great work.
Right.
One of these areas, and I think they're going to be coming up with something.
She's right.
We have most of our analysis performed, but we set it aside for the time being. These are other projects that got in the way. But yeah, we can complete.
To complete it, do you need help from?
I don't know. I have Tom is working on it with me, so.
Tom's your intern,
Tom is my housing specialist part-time.
Are you gonna have an intern this year
We
again?
will have an intern, but I don't think he's going to be helpful in housing. Maybe in the 3 or 4 other areas I have to do. So that's it. Yeah, I think we're
So I think we get old business. We had a special guest who wanted to know about ADUs tonight. And be around afterwards if you want to chat. But they're happening.
Okay,
And,
good.
and they're happening at the rate of about 1 a month.
Very good.
And so we'll be around if you want to chat for a bit.
Yeah. And can people put up sort of quick standardized designs so that they're easily put, and quickly put in place? Or
well, they are as of right in most cases. But you know, it's kind of we have done a couple workshops, and Mark Andre, who's here, was one of our panelists at one point. So we had people talking about how to go about doing it, but we've tried to remove as many roadblocks as possible.
we distributed the stuff from AARP on.
Yeah, we have our own brochure as well. But yeah, I'm sure there's other things we could do to encourage folks.
And those videos are both online. So the 2 seminars that were held in the fall of 2022 and 23.
on our town website.
They're hard to spot. They're hard
They
to
jump
spot
on-
sometimes.
I know.
Some of them are so well done.
Wonderful.
Just on a couple other reports, the Housing Trust Fund, which we talked about in terms of our capacity to accommodate funding requests. We have a current balance of $1 million, $1,034,692. We do have a reserve for additional acquisition within Park Commons Development. It's 376 Quincy, which is still pending before the court in Bridgeport. They had a hearing on the 22nd of April, but no decision has been finalized yet. But so we have an uncommitted balance of $715,692 as of. We are.
Has anybody said anything to you about the trust fund? Anybody in town government or anybody you meet on the street?
In terms of, say, I have some extra money, I'd like to give you some money, or?
Well, you know that too, but I just said we've had this now for what, 3 years?
Yeah.
And we can point to some things, but we can't point to an awful lot.
Well, we'd like to get to a completed project, so to that end, the first project that's getting close, but we're still many months away, is the Greenfield Street, the 2 duplexes over there, 4 units. We did, obviously, we've been assembling parcels within Parkview for development. And we did sign a development agreement with Habitat for those 5 parcels, assuming the court does approve 376 Quincy. And the plan would be, I think, for the first 2 across the street that are not contiguous to each other, plan to just build 2 duplexes that would be conforming to a current zoning on the existing lots, and they're kind of standalone projects, which works with the habitat model too. So the other side of the street where we have 3 parcels put together, we're trying to do a little bit more, more intense development, more density, with some triplexes or plexes that are kind of the cluster type development in that previously. But that'll require a zoning application. The other 2 can just go in with the building when we eventually get them designed.
But in general, nobody.
No.
Maybe
I mean,
do some more marketing.
we've gotten inquiries from developers and investors, and this is indication of one. Another, person that we have been working with community development is aware of the housing trust fund and said, hey, give me money, I can do more with how. It's like you bring the projects and I'll worry about where the money comes from. So we'll evaluate it on its own basis. But part of it is I just, again, the conversation we had earlier is that the best utilization of housing trust fund dollars? $1 million sounds like a lot, or something. It's not really a lot to do in development. So we need to think carefully about how we use those and for the longer term good. That's why we haven't gone out with the hey, bring us all your crazy projects and we'll figure it out type thing. So that's the housing trust fund. Did I answer?
You did. Yeah, thank you.
I really want to know if someone had approached you.
Yeah.
Give us money, and that person
I wish they
hasn't
were.
yet. So just tell them again.
The moratorium application, we've made a lot of headway with Tom's help. He's filled in a lot of gaps for me. We're really the timetable on that application likely be later in July probably. I was out doing a couple of site visits and talked to the buildings construction manager on site in Parkview, Park Avenue, and from my view, it looked like they had a ways to go. So I was just like, well, the owner at one point had told me May. It doesn't look like May. What's your best guess? And he said July. So that seems more reasonable as to where things stand. So that's really what's going to put us over the top. Then there'll be the process. But we wanted to get the application ready.
So you're saying, Mark, once that CO very shortly thereafter, we'll be in a position to submit.
Yeah. Yes. I'm not aware of any other new set-aside developments, although there's been the Bronson Road project. They did do a full building permit. I don't think they've actually broken ground, but they did pull a building permit.
Back in Darien.
Garden Homes.
Yeah, because I've driven by there like 3 times in the last couple of weeks and I didn't see any activity.
There's a building permit issued. So, I think I've updated everything else.
Is there anything new on St. Emery or on
Mill
Hill?
Nothing on Mill Hill. St. Emery did have been talking to Carol. Obviously, Carol did get permission from the diocese to have the appraiser do an interior visit to the interior, go into the site as part of the appraisal. So that's good sign. I think that's, yeah. I was just going to mention, we also did just have our purpose there, our public hearing on the community development block grant.
Did you let us know about them? Did you let us know you were having it?
I didn't let you specifically know, but I let the public know. Herb showed up.
But you didn't let the Board of Housing Committee, because you used to.
Sometimes. So, but you still have time to comment on it. We're proposing to allocate 261 of our, we still don't have a budget for next year. So Jonathan and Michelle will see this eventually when I get to see our team later, but preview. contractions.
To be the same or?
We don't expect it to change materially. This is an estimate. We don't have our grant allocation from HUD yet.
Has it been going down over the last, trending down over the last few years?
Yes, it has. It's about $500,000 supplemented by program income. So not a huge change from previous allocations. That's. I'll go to the boards probably in June, July.
Stats.
Yep.
Just pulled off the MLS, just the summary.
Mark, did anything, conversation ever occur about Southport or wherever that goes?
Pequot Avenue?
Yeah.
We are still trying to. We're still trying to pursue that, but let's just say the owners of Pequot Avenue have decided that they would like to go in a different direction. So, in the sense that I think they're very much concerned with the tax implications of a sale, even at a discounted rate to the town, and likely will leave it to their progeny.
Oh, okay. So you're talking about the
4 units. Well, we are still trying to have a conversation with them.
You know,
which one?
The one Rich.
Oh, that's Bronson Road. So I did talk to David. David, I don't know, was going to talk to the developer.
Oh, so you
didn't want me to be involved.
I didn't realize. Yeah, I got the backstory.
So anyway.
Is that 4 units on? So we can't figure out a tax advantaged way to lock it up and.
Well, I think that was my last pitch to her, which is there are different ways to. I mean, I understand your concern. We share your desire not to give Uncle Sam more than its fair share here, and we can minimize that. But we need to sit down and talk, and we wanted to do that. So we're waiting to see if we can get that meeting face to face. Anyway, doing some loose. Other. Some get rained out.
No, is there anything else on ADUs that we wanted to know?
Well, the town has long permitted ADUs, but as you know, up until recently, in the last few years, there was a restriction on, how they could get built, where they could get built. There was a 5-year, you couldn't build it as part of a new construction. You had to wait 5 years. So with the help of this committee and the Fairfield Senior Advocates and Fair Plan, there's been a series of amendments made, which has brought that more in line and made it easier to create ADUs. And I think the market has responded accordingly. You guys have done some workshops to help get the word out. That's been helpful. But I think there's probably more opportunities. California is certainly making a lot of huge strides in that area. We're further along in some places, but maybe not as far along as others. And so we can always learn from each other, which is the other thing. I don't know if I can formally announce it, but we did receive the technical capacity building grant from the Fairfield County Center for Housing Opportunities. We're one of the 4 communities selected as part of the first cohort. So the idea is to help communities like ours figure out ways in which we can help meet our affordable housing needs by learning from each other. So and with some technical assistance from the Fairfield County Center for Housing Opportunities. Their chief person is Lynn Haig. Who's going to be working with us. So Stay tuned. Jonathan knows. We all know.
We love Lynn.
So anyway, I think that's good. Something we've long been asking the state to do. I don't think it's money, but I do think it's what would be helpful is just to have some additional folks to kind of lean in and figure this out. You know, kind of we're kind of like every time we do something, we're calling places. What are you doing? What are you doing? You know, it'd be nice if we if there was a playbook, or at least we had more information up front without having to recreate the wheel. So, certainly good news. Anything else?
I think we should acknowledge and thank our visitors today. It's really good to see folks, especially the RTM to come, and just a member of the public to come. Thank you very much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having us.
Great to have you all.
All right, so freaking hot.
I know. I
Don't have to sugarcoat it.
All right.
Not a pleasure.
I'm losing weight as I sit here.
Our meetings are not.
Motion to adjourn?
Hour and a half is as much.
Thank you, Jack.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Quick draw.
Good night.
Thank you.